The death toll from flash floods in northeast India's Sikkim state has risen to at least 40 after heavy rains caused the Himalayan glacial lake to burst its banks. Rescue operations continue for a second day as workers race to search for the dozens who are still missing. Flooding worsened when parts of a dam were washed away. Sikkim's chief minister has linked the breach of the dam to inferior construction by the previous state government. Roads, bridges and telephone lines have also been destroyed across much of the state, further complicating both evacuations and efforts to communicate with the thousands who are cut off. The government has warned of, quote, stray explosions after floods hit an army ammunition depot. 2 people have died after being hit by explosives that were washed away. Officials in Sikkim have set up at least 18 relief camps for the 22,000 people who are without homes. Army helicopters are also airdropping supplies to clusters of stranded people. The Indian government says it has expedited funding for relief and recovery efforts, with Prime Minister Narendra Modi promising, quote, all possible support. This is the worst disaster of this nature to hit the region in more than 50 years. And Sikkim is still at risk. The government warning of another potential glacial lake bursting its banks, the Sakho Cho Lake near Lachen, just 12 kilometers away from the village of Tangu. Authorities have started evacuating residents from surrounding areas. And for more, Nihar Pune joins us live from New Delhi. Nihar, apart from obviously coping with the destruction from these floods, there is still the danger of explosives and ammunition washing up on riverbanks. Can authorities actually handle this danger?
You're absolutely right. I mean, this is already a massive tragedy which is playing out, impacting tens of thousands of people in the northeastern region of Sikkim. But what's complicating rescue efforts, which have understandably dominated the attention of authorities, is the fact that the flash floods also hit an army ammunition depot in the state, as a result of which several arms and mortar shells were swept away with the flood waters. They've now come downstream to the Tista River and flowing into, we believe, the neighboring region of West Bengal. Like you said, we already seen 2 casualties. These are 2 children who picked up a mortar shell that was floating along the river in northwest Bengal, and 6 other people were injured in that accident as well. Now, the police say they've issued an advisory. They've told people who are living along the banks of the Tista River that there are ammunitions and mortar shells that are likely floating in the water. They don't know how many. They've asked residents to be alert to flag any unknown or unidentifiable objects to the authorities and not pick anything up themselves. And this is something that's worrying many locals as well.
On here, subpar construction blamed for the breach of the first dam. Now a second lake also at risk of bursting its banks. Are construction standards a major factor in this particular disaster?
Well, that's certainly what the Chief Minister of the state is claiming. He says that inferior construction of the Chungthang Dam is what led to it being swept away. He says this was something that was done by the previous government, pointing at the opposition that had been in power for about 20 plus years. And he's saying there's no other reason why an entire dam should be swept away with the force of the water. It should technically be able to withstand flood waters, irrespective of how high the volume of water might be. But this is coming after the opposition accused the government of ensuring that there's unchecked construction in the fragile Himalayan ecosystem, asking them to be more responsible. But the political mudslinging aside, we are now also being told that there is risk of another glacial lake bursting its banks. This is the Sakho Lake. It's about 1.3 kilometers it's 1.3 kilometers wide and about 12 kilometers away from a village that has now been entirely evacuated. Authorities saying they want to take no chances given what happened just earlier this week. They say soaring temperatures could lead to that lake bursting its banks as well. And what's interesting is that just earlier this year, the government was trying to implement or at least install an early warning system on this lake and the Lonak Lake that burst earlier this week as well.
Well, thanks for that. Nihar Pune reporting live from New Delhi.